You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me here today on our usually Training Thursday. But today, like I said, we're going to be taking a couple Thursdays to go through what we're calling Toxic Thursdays or Toxicity Thursdays, where I'm going to be sharing with you some of the health-based principles that I wrote about in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, and how toxins in the environment are actually causing many, if not most, of the health-based issues, the weight gain issues, and also the longevity issues that we have in our society and really any developing-based nation. So one of the ones that I want to talk about today is environmental toxicities and its direct correlation with cancer. So one of the things that I like to do with you every once in a while is just say, okay, let's step away from naturopathic medicine. Let's step away from Ayurvedic, from bioregulatory, from traditional Chinese medicine, any of the philosophies that aren't just conventionally based, right? So conventional based medicine deals with some like oncology for cancer, right? They deal with chemotherapy, radiation, they deal with surgery, and it's very just kind of textbook where you come in with this, like let's just say it's high cholesterol, you get a statin. If you come in with Hashimoto's, you're going to get some type of biological based drug for autoimmune. You're also going to be given some type of levothyroxine for your extra thyroid. And again, this goes for everything, right? If you have allergies, well, you get Claritin. If you, name your drug. It's always basically treating the specific symptom of what's at the surface. And the same with cancer, meaning if you have cancer, we're going to, as they say, burn, cut, poison the body in order to eliminate it from the body. Now, maybe you believe in that methodology or maybe you don't. Maybe that's your only hope. I'm not judging any of those things. I'm certainly not. I believe that there's a time and place for every different type of medicine. I truly believe that. What I want to do today, though, is share that conventional medicine, meaning like the medicine that brings you the pharmaceutical drugs, but also brings you the most amazing technology out there, right? In terms of like prosthetic-based replacements and all sorts of different beneficial drugs for people with actual congenital-based issues. So that's why I don't have an issue with it. I have an issue with it for chronic-based issues, and certainly I have an issue with it with how we're trying to treat cancer in this country. But the amazing thing is that even conventional medicine is starting to come around with the truths, because they are truths. Remember, these are universal truths. Everything that I wrote about in the Rain Barrel Effect is a universal truth, meaning that it's been around since the dawn of time. It's been around since man has been around. And because of that, it will never be proved incorrect. It just might take some time for science to catch up to what we already know is part of our human physiology, is part of nature, is part of, what we call the science of life, Ayurveda, Ayurvedic medicine. So what I want to do is I want to share with you how conventional medicine, just again, the medicine that most of us were brought up on, going to your PCP and going to your specialist and your GI doctor and then your endocrine specialist and then your cancer specialist, all the specialists, that's what they practice. Well, here's what literally was written in an article by, what I'm going to talk about, the President's Cancer Panel. This is basically a special council set up for the president that's looking at research and that's essentially works alongside or works at least with the National Cancer Institute. So I'm going to go through some of those things today, but literally this is how the article starts off. And again, this is not a recent article. This has already been out for a number of years, but a lot of people just don't know about this. So one, I was shocked because, again, I live in this world, so of course I know, but a lot of people had never heard or had any idea when I published my book, which has only been about a month now, but never knew that all these things cause cancer. So in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, again, top 10 things that cause cancer, the top 10, or that cause disease in general in the body. Because what are we talking about? It's a dis-ease of the body. It makes an imbalance in the body. It creates deficiencies, and then it also builds up toxicities. That's what we're talking about. Well, when those things go wrong, the body can no longer fight cancer. It can no longer remove those pathogenic cells, those malignant cells, the metastasizing cells we call cancer. All right. So the article starts off like this, though. Traces of chemicals known to cause human cancer, lurk everywhere. That is literally the first line of the article, meaning traces of chemicals, and it goes on to talk about synthetic chemicals that we make, plastics and benzenes and all these things, that synthetic preservatives, are everywhere. And that's literally what it says. Now, if you look into the research, I'm going to link up both these articles today, so don't worry about who wrote it and where it was said. I'm going to link everything up. So, and again, all the show notes will be at stephencabral.com/839. And what I want to do, again, is try to show you that this is not a natural health-based thing, because I know there's a lot of you out there who are trying to convince your spouse, trying to convince a parent or your doctor that, these things are going on all around us. And they're like, yeah, I don't believe it. Well, these are actual articles that you can send to them if you'd like, because, sometimes the people who are a little bit more stubborn to come around because, my doctor's never mentioned that. Well, a lot of times, and just to be honest, your doctor's not reading any material. They're just not. Like, they might be reading like the latest pharmaceutical-based methodology, what they're using in practice, but they're not reading the research, and they're certainly not going out and looking at a lot of the studies themselves. It's not happening. It's just not happening. I haven't seen it happen. And yeah, of course, every once in a while it does. Like there's aberrations for everyone, right? And in every industry. But I'm guaranteeing you, 99 out of 100 PCPs are simply not going and looking at the natural-based cures, right? The natural-based reasons why people get cancer or autism, or they have developmental-based issues, or they have mood and hormone-based issues. Any of these things, they're not looking at that because, one, it's not their job, right? And number two, it takes a lot of time. It really does. It takes a lot of time. You have to be a little bit insane, such as myself, and just super passionate. That's it. Like, just really want to figure out the answers because of things that you've gone through, or you feel the need, for whatever reason, you feel the need to figure it out and then share it with others. And so anyway, that's what we're talking about today. And one of the things I have to share with you is that when we're talking about cancer here, 60%, at least 60% of all cancer deaths are caused by smoking and diet alone. The reason I came up with this for today is because it's now known, I'm going to break them down right now, that 95% of all disease, and especially cancer, is diet and environment. Okay, so the environment would be essentially smoke, secondhand smoke, smoking yourself, and then we have diet. Okay, we're going to talk about all of these things today. Well, smoking, why is smoking, basically, let's just call it 2/3 of deaths, cancer deaths from smoking. It's literally the worst thing you can do. For all the top 3 causes of death in the United States, pretty much anywhere in developed countries, the top 3 are smoking. So if you can do one thing for your health to live a longer life, don't smoke. I mean, it's literally the number one thing, because you're going to have cardiovascular-based issues, most likely neurological-based issues. You're certainly going to have liver-based issues, lung, right? And then cancer. So like you can't, right? You can't do these things. It's so important for yourself, for your loved ones, that if you are smoking, I implore you to stop. I really do. Like, if there's one thing you can do, it's to remove that vice in particular. And that's because you are setting yourself up, not in your 20s or 30s or maybe even 40s, but 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And I'm hoping that you get beyond. And the reason is this, is that smoking over time, just like anything, is what starts to build up in the body. And yes, it does affect the cardiovascular system. It affects your heart as much as your lungs. It really does. And that's why it's so important. But I've read all sorts of different studies. 4,000 times more susceptible to cancer if you smoke. I mean, the odds are just, they're enormous. And I don't want to see you do that to yourself. And I don't want you to see that you do that to your loved ones, especially kids and grandkids that you could be spending many, many happy years with. And I just know, because I work with some very, very, some world-renowned MDs and specialists. And I work with them as private wellness clients in my own practice, or I just know them as colleagues and great friends. And they share with me that one of the regrets of people in their 60s when they have cancer and they have been smoking most of their life, or they need oxygen, or they have COPD, or whatever it might be, that they regret it. But you know what? They don't stop because they're so far in. So what I need you to do is stop now, because I've also given podcasts and talked about how you can get back about 30% of your lung capacity just about 2 to 3 weeks after you stop smoking. I mean, it's absolutely miraculous what the body can do. You'll stop smoking. You just do something like the 21-day Dr. Cabral detox. You'll do an intermittent fast. You can do infrared saunas, just starting out slowly, because all that smoke will literally be pulled out of your body. start to exercise little by little. Like all of these things in your life can change. So don't think that you can't change now. Like now is the best time to change. It really is. Today. And I know that you might not even be perfect. And I know that you might even relapse a week or two or a month or two from now. But it's better to try. It is always better to try. All right, let's move on. So one of the things I want to go over, though, is that the President's Cancer Panel, and that's what we're going to mainly be talking about today, but I'm also going to quote from PubMed today as well, went over that they believe that even though this came out 40 years ago, that somewhere around 6% of all cancer deaths are also environmental and exposure-based, that number is outdated and far too low. So, and again, this is 4 decades ago, 40 years ago, the original research came out. And these are only cancer deaths. So remember, many more people get cancer, maybe like 10 times that amount, and don't die from it. But the environmental toxins, the things in your toothpaste that you don't even know are there, the aluminum in your tap water, right? The fluoride that creates thyroid-based cancers potentially as well. One of the big ones is just exhaust fume, right? In the environment, brake dust. All of these things, pesticides on foods, all of these add up and can lead to cancer. And we know that. In my book, I literally show photos of men in hazmat suits, like full toxic-based suits that you would look at if there was a nuclear blast, right? And someone was going in afterwards. That type of suit. And that's what they wear to spray your food, conventional-based food, with pesticides. Because if they were to breathe in at that level, they'd be dead. They literally would be dead. And I quote in my book that the reason or the way that they give lab rats cancer, this is the way that they give them cancer in a lab so that they can try to treat the cancer, is they give them one pesticide. A pesticide is what they're exposed to. So when I was reading that, I'm like, how are we still trying to figure out what causes cancer when to give a lab rat cancer, we expose it to pesticide? And it's not just pesticide. It's all sorts of different environmental-based toxins. And again, there are over 77,000, more like 100,000, but over 77,000 man-made chemicals in the environment. And are they at that highest level when you're spraying the crops? No. But all this adds up over time, and that's what the studies are not able to look at, because they look at it at the highest dose, or they look at it in the smallest dose saying, okay, well, this won't cause cancer. Okay, it won't cause cancer in the next week, but what about a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades overtaking it? Or what about our children, right? Our children who weigh 20 pounds, 30 pounds, like both my daughters, right around there, right? What about them? Don't you think their body is far more susceptible at 30 pounds with an not fully developed liver and body's ability to detoxify? Don't you think they're more susceptible? Don't you think that's why we have more childhood cancer, more childhood obesity, more of all these specific issues? Yes, we have a lot of processed food. Sure, we have a lot of processed food. We started having processed food back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, right? But we didn't have all these toxins. And again, I don't think it's one thing. I don't think it's one thing that causes autism. I don't think it's one thing that causes cancer. I think it is this literally filling up of what we call the rain barrel effect. And once you're full, well, that's when you get your disease. That's what I believe. Once you meet your genetic threshold, right? Once you meet your liver's ability to clean your blood, that's it. That's it. Now your body really starts to break down. You can't overcome the invaders. They overcome you. And that's why I find this so important to share this message with others. And I want you to now share the message with someone as well. Because remember, I got the information. I did the research. I was willing to go out there and really say, what is going on here? And then I just try to put that into a book and get that information to you, which then hopefully you can give to others. And again, I didn't want this book to be about trying to say, oh, well, this is going to be something that I'm going to turn into a business and try to make a lot of money on. No, it wasn't about that. And the reason is that I wanted this to be pure, that I could say, I'm giving this book, this information to everyone. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast, but how can I put it all together in one book that people can understand how they got here, how they got sick, or they started to gain weight, or they just started to feel like low energy and blah. And then how do you get well again? That's what I wanted to do. And that's why all the profits are donated to charity, so that there can never be anyone saying like, oh, well, you're just doing this for this. No, there's none of that. That's not what it's about. And so what I want to do is try to share that message in as many different venues as I can. And the book is one. Some people like to read. Some people don't listen to podcasts. That's just the way it is. And, a lot of people ask me to transcribe the podcast all the time, but people don't understand. I would love to be able to do that. But I do a daily podcast. It's 7 days a week. It's about 25 minutes long. And that would require literally 2 other full-time people. One person would have to be doing the transcribing. Another person would have to go back, edit it, turn it into paragraphs. Another person would have to put it back on the show notes. And then I would have to record the podcast like 2 weeks in advance. And I can't do that. I like to do that so the podcasts are always fresh. I like to be able to feel it when I'm speaking with you. And I don't want to have it done 2 weeks before. So there's so much that goes into this. But again, people can now read the gist of it in the book, and they can listen to the podcast, hopefully for some daily inspiration. But not only that, but an action plan, which is what I'm going to give you today as well. So let's move on with that. And part of what I wanted to share as well is, besides the smoking, we know that another 30% is essentially attributed to diet. And that's because obesity and physical inactivity, all these things, that's another third, right? That's another third of what accounts for cancer. And again, these are just estimates, but they've been estimates now for a long time, and they seem to be holding up. So we'll talk about diet. We'll talk about what those foods are. And now we're left with what? About 10%, right? About 10% from the smoking. We're left with the diet. And now we have, what's that 10%? And now they're attributing that, interesting enough, to environment. Before they said it was somewhere around maybe 2 to 6%. They're saying, okay, maybe a little bit more. So that's 95%. Now we're left with what? 5% could be some type of genetic abnormality. But again, everybody always blames genetics. And I honestly believe almost 0% is genetics, meaning that you have a genetic predisposition. There's no doubt about it. In some families, all the women are predisposed to maybe breast cancer. I'm not saying that. But why do only 2 out of the 4 women, they all have the gene for it, why don't only 2 out of the 4 women in the family, 2 out of the 4 sisters get breast cancer and the 2 don't? Well, could be diet, could be environment, could be a lot of different things. There's something that has to explain that. So I would say genetics is genetics. It's always there. It leaves us susceptible to something. But a 100%, not just 95%, I would say 100% is the environment. And that explains children as well. Because remember, kids aren't necessarily, they're not born with a bad diet. Maybe a child is literally born with cancer within their first few months of life. Now that absolutely can be congenital, just born with it, or it can be genetic. But a lot of times inside their body, they were exposed to something in their mother's womb. And again, I'm not trying to paint a bleak picture, because I believe that we can all get out of this. But on the President's Council for Cancer, they clearly said that the chance of you getting cancer from environmental exposure could be well above what we're talking about right now. And that's because during human development in the womb or early childhood, this is exactly what they stated, that what happens then, being exposed to heavy metals, being exposed to all these different things in shampoos, again, women's cosmetics. I talk about this. The average woman uses approximately 12 different products that contain over 120 different chemicals, cancer-causing chemicals. And they don't even know it. I mean, even SPF, you're trying to prevent cancer from going out in the sun, but your SPF has cancer-causing chemicals right inside of it. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's almost too perfect that you could say and I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but I'm like, okay, we tell people they're going to get cancer from the sun. We give them an SPF to wear, recommended by the dermatologist, but the ingredients in their SPF causes cancer, and then they're treated by oncologists. It's like the oddest thing. It's this wild, vicious circle, whereas you'd probably be better off getting some sun, just don't get burned, and allowing your body to build up some vitamin D to actually boost the immune system to fight off cancer cells. We have things very, very backwards. That's a topic for a different show. I've actually talked about that. If you look up sunscreen on a previous podcast, check that out. And of course, I talk about it in my book. I mentioned my book a lot today. It's honestly, the information, no matter what, is always going to be given to you. Really, it is. I can honestly say that everything inside of the book, goes back to everything on the podcast. It really has. It's just a different medium to get it to people. That's simply it. All right. So when we go to, and we're looking at environmental exposure, we're talking about in the womb, because why? Because these heavy metals and these toxins get directly into the bloodstream. You can breathe them in right into your lungs. You can put them on your skin and they go directly into your bloodstream. And then they go through the placenta right into the unborn child. So when we look at that, it's really easy to see how these could affect a child that weighs a pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, or 7 or 8 pounds maybe when they're born. And I think that's another reason too why we're seeing a lot more early childhood diseases, because the environment that moms and dads are living in are exposing them and their genetic offspring to these types of cancer-causing environments. We'll put it that way. So again, I'm going to link all of this up today. One thing I wanted to do is that I wanted to actually read you. I want to read you right now the specific quote, and then I'll just leave you always with some action tips that you can take. All right, so this specific paragraph is directly from PubMed. Why is this important? Because PubMed is not written by naturopathic doctors. It's not written by acupuncturists, not written by chiropractors. It's not written by anyone in the natural health field. It is written by scientists and very conventional medicine-minded people, which again is great. Honestly, I say this a lot, but the truth is that I'm very happy that we have the PhDs and scientists and MDs working in this field because we need everyone. We really do. We honestly, it would be so great if everyone had a naturopath, they had an acupuncturist, they had their chiropractor, they had their massage therapist, they had their personal trainer, they had their MD. That would be a perfect world, right? Like we have our own council on exercise and health. That would be amazing. I really believe that. And hopefully one day we can work towards that. It's just too bad that health insurance is used right now only when you have a disease and not actually to keep you healthy. Because can you imagine if the $1,000 or whatever you have to pay per month for your health insurance, so nice, by the way, for those who have universal health care and they pay very little, but let's just say you're paying $500 a month. What if you could pay $50 towards all of your different specialists? You could go see 2 a week. You can see your acupuncturist and massage therapist 1 week, your naturopath or your health coach and your personal trainer another week. You could go see everybody that you needed to and then just paid a copay and then insurance paid all of those people. It'd be the same price, but everybody would be walking around healthy. It would be literally amazing. Or if you could use your health insurance for food, a real food stamps-based program where you get good organic food and people could do that. So if you didn't use your health insurance that month to go to the doctor, maybe you could then use it for food. I just think, doesn't that make sense? Maybe it makes too much sense. I don't know. We'll save that again for another day. So what I'm reading though, the reason I went off on that little rant, the little sidestep, is because this is from the U.S. National Library of Medicine called the National Institutes of Health. It's called NIH essentially, but this is PubMed. PubMed publishes these research, right? Publication of medical-based studies. And so this is called Cancer is a Preventable Disease that Requires Major Lifestyle Changes. I really want to highlight this. Written by conventional medicine. The same people who don't know the cause for cancer, right? Same people. And they wrote, cancer is a preventable disease that requires major lifestyle changes. Let's see how major they are right now. All right. So again, those who want to check out the study, I'm going to link it up for everybody into the research. All right. This is literally what it says. This year, more than 1 million Americans and more than 10 million people worldwide are expected to be diagnosed with cancer, a disease commonly believed to be preventable. Only 5 to 10% of all cancer cases can be attributed to genetic defects, whereas the remaining 90 to 95% have their root in environment and lifestyle. The lifestyle factors include cigarette smoking, diet, fried foods and red meat, alcohol, sun exposure, environmental pollutants, infections, stress, obesity, and physical inactivity. The evidence indicates that of all cancer-related deaths, almost 25 to 30% are due to tobacco, as many as 30 to 35% are linked to diet, and about 15 to 20% are due to infections, and the remaining percentage are due to other factors like radiation, stress, physical activity, environmental pollutants, etc. Therefore, cancer prevention requires smoking cessation, increased ingestion of fruits and vegetables, moderate use of alcohol, caloric restriction, exercise, avoidance of direct exposure to sunlight, minimal meat consumption, use of whole grains, use of vaccinations, and regular checkups. In this review, we present evidence that inflammation is the link between the agents, factors that cause cancer, and the agents that prevent it. In addition, we provide evidence that cancer is a preventable disease that requires major lifestyle changes. Absolutely amazing that this was done. You're not going to believe it. This was done a decade ago. It's 2018. I'm recording this. This was talked about a decade ago. Now, it was talked about well before that, but recorded as a clinical study and proof on this 10 years ago. So what we're looking at right now is when we look at the top. Now, there's a couple that I want to just say, I don't think that cancer prevention requires smoking cessation. Yes, you stop smoking because we know 30 to 60%. Like nobody's arguing with 30, 35%. Some people maybe say smoking is not 60%. It's a lot. Let's say it's half, okay? Increase ingestion of fruits and vegetables. Well, what are we doing on these low-carb diets that are eliminating our blueberries, our raspberries, our cherries, our blackberries, our kiwis, all of these different things that we know can prevent cancer? That's why it doesn't make sense. That's why I try to be as unbiased as possible. And when I see things come around like the keto diet where you need to get 50 carbs or less per day, and I'm like, well, I mean, you're trying to prevent cancer, but there's never been proven that the keto diet prevents cancer. There's proof that you might be able to help shrink cancer cells by doing a keto-based diet. Why? Because you're starving them of fruits. I mean, you're starving them of sugars, but there's nothing that says that prevents it. I mean, so again, we have to look at that. Moderate use of alcohol. I think that's incorrect. I don't think there's any way that alcohol would possibly help you prevent cancer. Now you can say, well, it helps reduce stress, but sure, there's other ways to reduce stress, but alcohol is not going to prevent cancer, that's for sure. If anything, it can lead to cancer, and they talk about that. So that's why that's kind of a double that doesn't make sense. Caloric restriction, absolutely, we need to include that. I've done many shows on that. Exercise, of course. Avoidance of direct exposure to sunlight. I completely disagree with this as well. Everyone needs safe exposure to sunlight. Sunlight is what helps detoxify the body. No one ever talks about that. The human body was meant to be outside. It was meant to be outside almost all day. And the other thing is this, you're just not meant to get burnt. You're not meant to get, reddened by the sun, but you are meant to get your vitamin D through the sun. It's so important. Minimal meat consumption. I completely agree. Even if you don't stop eating meat completely, you need to minimize that. You honestly do. And that's because, and I've talked about it, I've done many interviews on this, and I've done many podcasts showing you the literature, the proof. Those people that ate a higher protein diet, especially containing meat, meaning like anywhere between 11 and 19% of their diet, had a greater all-cause mortality, not just from cancer. Whole grains. I'm not against whole grains, okay? Now, not everybody in my practice can do grains. They can't. And I certainly am not a big fan of a lot of wheat-based products and zero processed products. But could you benefit from some types of rice, some type of ancient grain, some type of oats? Yes, a lot of people do benefit from it, but it's not even necessary if you get in your fruits and vegetables. But there's that. Regular checkups and vaccinations. Absolutely, I believe in regular checkups. How vaccinations are done right now, I'm not going to give you my full spiel on that for today. But what we need to do is find a way to take the aluminum and heavy metals and a lot of these animal-based tissue out of vaccinations. And that would make them much safer. So right now, we can't say that that's going to prevent. We don't have an anti-cancer vaccine. So that's the reason I'm just saying that right there. I don't know of an anti-cancer vaccine. I certainly haven't seen one, and I do quite a bit of research. So that would be news to me. So what I like to go by is simply facts. Like I like to look at the facts. Fruits and vegetables, a mainly plant-based diet, helps to cut down and prevent cancer. Detoxification of the body, doing something like the Dr. Ball detox quarterly, just like they did in Ayurvedic times. And in all different times, they did intermittent fasting and detox. Why? To remove these environmental pollutants. And we need to keep our fruits and vegetables and do something like the Dr. Ball Daily Protocol. Or again, your favorite functional medicine protocol. You can use whatever you would like because that's what's going to help fight off these infections. This is what's going to give your body the strength by having the vitamin D and the zinc and the vitamin C, everything inside of that daily nutritional support shake or a daily activated multi. And then, yes, we need to exercise. We need to keep our body weight low, not like too thin. I'm not saying that, but we need to keep our waist-hip ratio, meaning a smaller waist, really important. And then, of course, decrease stress. Yes, decrease stress in every way possible, which is one of the biggest factors for all dis-ease in the body as well because of the cascade event. So what I wanted to do today, and I hope that I was somewhat successful, is to show you that everyone believes that cancer is a diet, lifestyle, environmental-based issue, and that is not being spoken to in the media. People think that cancer is out of our control. I'm telling you right now, detoxify your body. Look at doing the 12-hour intermittent fasts overnight, from 7 to 7, all the things that I talk about. Look at getting good nutrition in your body, mainly plant-based, healthy levels of sun. Get your sleep, detoxify, stress, all the things right in the de-stress protocol that I talk about. So all of these things, I'm telling you right now, not only are they going to help to cut down your risk of cancer, but you're going to be feeling better, you're going to have better energy, and we hope that you'll be dis-ease free. Thank you so much for tuning into the Cabral Concept. I truly appreciate each and every one of your listens. If this show was helpful, do feel free to pass it along to someone else it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.